Yahtzee.
Yeah,
Yahtzee. I haven't played Yahtzee. Ever. Like, it's been a long time.
We played in quarantine once.
Quarantine. What a great word.
What a great word.
Where is God in quarantine?
Where is God?
Yahtzee.
Yahtzee.
The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Garrett and I are here talking about all things extra and related and connected to this idea of where is God when bad things happen.
Yeah, I mean, all week we've been discussing and looking at Joseph's life, you know, when there's nothing I can do, when I have no options, when I don't know what to do, where's God? Where is he? And you know what? God is with you.
That's right. Because in our story, where we're at, you know, this is week 2 of 5 weeks where we'll be talking and walking through the story of Joseph together. Garrett mentioned it's Genesis 37 through 50 if you want to go study that on your own.
Yeah.
And Joseph has been sold into slavery by his brothers. He's now in a foreign country, working as a slave, and we learn he gets this master named Potiphar.
Talk about the need for counseling for that family. They are just a lot of forgiveness issues, you would think, right?
Yeah. We have to imagine that in those moments, the text doesn't really dive into Joseph's feelings so much, but if we empathize with Joseph, we have to imagine he's asking, like, okay, so where is God now?
Right. And that's always what we ask. Even when you hear us say a phrase casually, hey, we don't know what to do, God is with you. I know that for a lot of us, the first thing you hear in your brain is prove it. God is with you. Like how? Or find a situation that looks really negative and hopeless and say, oh, well, where's God there?
Yeah, where's God in this?
Right?
Where was God when my mom died? Where was God my parents' divorce? Where was God, you know, X, Y, Z?
Yeah, name historical events. What about the Crusades? What about the Holocaust?
What about cancer?
What about right? And I think we're not going to get philosophical with you. I just want to stay at the level of I don't think we're going to prove that. We're never going to solve that tension. I think that what we need is a different picture of God. I think instead of it being he's this old man upstairs on a cloud and he once in a while interacts with us, I think we need to see God as a God.
and that his idea is kind of to help us feel better, to live our best life.
This is it, yeah. The problem is not the suffering. The problem is our image of God.
Right.
And I think that instead of solving, well, where is he? I think we should just evolve the whole idea to say, why do you think God can't be in suffering? Why do you think God can't be in a place where things are going wrong, poorly, bad? And I recognize, like, our pain is really real. This is always the problem, is that when we're in a moment where we're like, what do we do? This is horrible. Things aren't getting better. This isn't getting fixed. Where is God? The real question is, why do I have an image of God that doesn't allow God to be in that moment with me? That's what I think we need to mess with.
Well, because here's the truth, is most of us are shaped by like a theology that we would call moralistic therapeutic deism.
I think you just made me go cross-eyed.
Okay, well, let's break down some words here. So moralistic meaning I'm a good person, right? Like I do more good things than bad things.
Yes.
Therapeutic.
Kind of weighing out my bad moments. I gave to a homeless charity one time.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
I'd say more nice things than I say mean things. Therapeutic meaning the whole goal is that I should be comfortable and feel good. Right?
Yeah.
And then deism is actually this really interesting like theological, philosophical stance that God is sort of, it's also been called like the watchmaker, philosophy, where God essentially created everything, set it in motion, and now it's just playing out.
He's kind of hands-off.
Very hands-off.
That's right.
Yeah, actually, the philosophy, we come by this honestly, that was the philosophy that most of our founding fathers held, believe it or not, which is not the God that we see in this book or in this story of Joseph. That's
what's weird about Joseph's story. It totally debunks the idea of a God who can't interact with you. You know, what's so weird is Joseph gets a dream, he gets thrown into a pit, ends up a slave in Egypt, and God, it still says God works to Joseph's advantage. What people meant for evil, God used for good in his story. And that is so shocking to find that in a book that is thousands of years old. We still don't get it. In fact, you and I always tend to experience God or change when we suffer.
I think we make the assumption that if God is good, then he wants me to be good. We think that a good God would not want a good person to hurt. Right? Like, if God is loving, then that means no pain.
He wouldn't allow me to hurt.
The reality is God actually sees pain as a temporary thing. He understands that what comes out of pain can often be more valuable than the pain itself.
Yeah, and I don't think we like where that road goes,
No,
that
we
line
don't.
of thinking,
We
right? If Jesus is our example, if we're following him, that's what we read earlier this week in Mark 14, is he's in the garden about to be betrayed and crucified, and he asks God, would you take this moment away? And God doesn't. And we all love the story of Jesus dying because that means, oh, we're forgiven of our sins, and oh, that means God's made a way for us. But for Jesus, it was like, can we not do this? That would be great.
We love this story until we have to follow Jesus into it.
It is that tension of just believing in Jesus is so easy, but if I have to follow him, then I have to wrestle with pain. I have to wrestle with disappointment and God leading me somewhere that might be very uncomfortable and lead to suffering.
Well, and that pattern continues after Jesus. Paul is beaten and shipwrecked and almost stoned. Like, I was reading in Acts 15 this morning.
Stoned like with rocks.
With rocks.
Yeah, not
with
the other
joints.
stone. Right, different.
He literally, it says that there's some people threw rocks at him and they thought he was dead, and then he got up and left. So he was concussed.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, you look at, I think, 11 out of 12 of Jesus' original disciples, and we'll take Judas out, so 10 out of 11 of Jesus' disciples were killed for their faith.
Yeah.
Everybody but John, the youngest, was like either crucified or crucified upside down in the case of Peter.
Yeah.
God does not seem to care as much about our pain, or maybe more accurately, our comfort, as we do.
Yeah, so the question is still, where is God when things aren't going right? Right now, the most relevant thing to us is a pandemic, right?
COVID-19.
Right, and then we're hearing this and kind of that question of, are things ever going to get better? Why isn't God saving us from this? And I like what you were saying a few minutes before this, that one thing that being American it's protected us from seeing pandemics, because the world goes through this quite more often than we have in our past, right?
Just in the last decade, there's been 3 different epidemic level viruses in the East and in Asia. Right.
So something to remember is it's a very much normal part of the human experience for most other parts of the world, except ours.
If you go back in history, it's an incredibly normal thing as well.
Yeah.
Our healthcare, our affluence, all sort of insulate us from those things.
Yeah, that's good.
And all of a sudden, we've got this virus that has evolved faster than our healthcare system, and now we're feeling vulnerable for the first time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the healthcare system, because I think it helps us in this moment to remember that Christians historically were the ones who invented hospitals. Hospitals were not invented until Christianity and the teachings of Jesus took hold of a large group of people. Right. And orphanages and all those things started because Christians started saying, we're not going to see suffering as an obstacle, we're going to see it as an opportunity.
That's right.
And I remember, as I said in my story time this week, there is a way of reframing and there's a way of looking at your life, and you can say, well, if pain is happening, God isn't there. That's one way of seeing it. The other way of seeing it is if there's pain and suffering, look for God in disguise. He's around. And what Mr. Rogers' mom told him was look for the helpers. And in my case, my helper came in the form of a friend, just crying for me when I was at a loss. And I think all of us are going to have these moments in our life where we're going to be tempted to feel isolated and alone, and actually to isolate ourselves further. Right. And instead to look for God. And He is there. And I know that I'm sure there's someone watching this right now going, prove it. You're just talking about fuzzy feelings and sentimentality. I hear you. You're right. I'm not giving you proof in a test tube that God is with you right now. But guess what? You also can't prove that you have friends. Measure friendship in a test tube. All the things that I can't measure, quantify, or put in a laboratory, those are the things that matter the most to us. And I think that's where we have to pause and say, stop looking for proof for something we can't measure. Right. And I think just see the helpers, see the goodness, see that forward energy in life around you, and see that that is God in disguise. Yeah.
Now, I want to make a caveat here, Garrett, because this is important. Like, when we're talking about experiencing the death of a loved one, that's painful.
Oh, it's horrible.
And that's normal.
Yeah.
Right? That's a part of life. If we're talking about, somebody, being sick or having cancer, these are normal parts of life.
That's right.
If we're talking about, however, abuse of some kind that somebody has gone through, that's not exactly normal.
Yeah, that's really good.
And that's not something God would ever endorse.
I love what you're doing.
And let's even say this, like, pain is not necessarily something that God causes. God is for human flourishing.
Yeah. Yeah, like with my grandma, it was not good. I hate that my grandma died of lung cancer, and yet our family, the closeness, the love, death is a part of the human story. What doesn't have to be a part of the human story is our parent abusing us. Yeah. Someone saying words. Those are things that can be changed. And if they're not, then we need to get help. You need to find help. You need to seek help. You need to send us a DM.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
You're like, I'm in a situation where I've never told anyone this, but I'm hurting, I'm struggling, and I'm trapped, I'm isolated. And that is a different kind of thing. God, where is he in that moment for you? He's in your opportunity to get out.
So what would be some good next steps here, Garrett? What do you think?
Oh, Wesley. Number one, I think you just have to change your perspective, your worldview. You've got to change how you're seeing God. And again, shake up your image of God, but also your image of the world. That pain and suffering doesn't mean God isn't real. And loss and discomfort doesn't mean someone is evil or wrong. It just simply means that we are in pain and we need something beyond ourselves.
Yeah. To go on top of that, I think we have to change our picture of God.
You have to.
Because if you see God as an angry old man on a cloud who's just letting it play out, then of course you're going to wonder where he is. But if you're actively in relationship with Jesus, you won't have to look very far.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus asked the question as he hangs on the cross, God, my God, why have you forsaken me? And the answer is he didn't. He was resurrected. God was right there on the cross, in and through Jesus. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The second thing I think we can do, Garrett, is choose to trust.
I want to share a verse about this. Hebrews 11. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. It is always foolish to look sure of something you can't see. It always makes you look foolish and weird to be someone who is confident about something you can't prove visibly. But that has always been the Jesus story. Is to say, I believe in what you cannot see. I am choosing to believe in the God who makes things that are not as though they are. And that is just, to me, a simple reminder. Today, would you choose faith? Would you choose trust in a presence and a love that is bigger than all of us?
You have to be able to trust that God is still working and moving, even though you can't feel it, perceive it, or see it.
That's right. Yeah, I'd say the third thing we got to do is not isolate ourselves.
Yep.
We have to stay connected at all costs. But I know there are some of you out there, students in our ministry, you isolate yourself. You love to believe, and you've kind of made an identity out of it, of being alone, being disconnected, being like it's all in your power, and if you can't do it, then you're just hopeless. And I want to encourage you that we're making this to reach out to you. You're not alone. God is absolutely with you, especially when you feel isolated.
Well, and some of you have been taught, if you're like me, that was an honorable thing.
Yep.
Independence. To just get through it on your own, to pull yourself up, grin and bear it, is an honorable thing. And I'm telling you, that's not what Jesus ever had in mind. It's a lie from our culture, because the more isolated you are, the more easy you are to pull down.
Because it's so an idol in our brain that we worship. Our independence, our ability to say, I'm just going to get through this. And you know what? We rarely do. Yeah, I even think of Jesus. He's in the garden praying, like Mark 14, oh God, take this cup away. There's 3 other guys there with it. He brought them
to come.
He said, come be with me. They fell asleep, not Jesus' fault. But nonetheless, he asked them, be with me. And he needed it too. I appreciate you hanging in with this deep dive. And we hope that if you do anything this week, you'll just simply choose to change your perspective about God. You will choose to believe again, have faith, and trust he's there. And that you will not isolate yourself. Do whatever it takes to make sure you stay connected.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.